Chloe Edwards, and my magazine is Reverb. These are just a few comments I noted about my front cover. I used Reverb because it's created when the sound is produced in an enclosed space, so that was to link with the whole music theme. I decided to have a slogan rather than the skyline because I preferred the design when it was beneath the masthead and I could write more, make it bigger rather than having to squeeze it on the top. I used magnetic lasso to cut the image out and then I pasted it to get two of the same. I made certain words stand out to grab people's attention if they were browsing a magazine. I chose this font because it was bold and really clear to read. The colour scheme matches the rest of the magazine. I found this style as well as my masthead style on the font. Contents. These are evidence of my brushes technique. I spread out various images as I didn't want my contents to be neat or tidy. I wanted images and text covering the whole page in different ways, as a lot of magazine contents pages are like this. I edited the exposure on all my images to make them stand out more, as some were quite dark. My DPS. On this main image, I made the exposure brighter, like last time, to make just everything stand out. So when you flick to the page, the first thing would stand out would be the image, obviously because of the band. And then I used the pull quote, which a lot of magazines do this. They always take sections from the text and make it bigger. Again, the font and my brushes technique to make it all look a lot better. My magazine uses various conventions of other magazines. I looked at other magazines in order to gain ideas that I could then take and use to develop and also improve my own magazine. I created surveys, mood boards and analysis to show the steps of research I did. This is the link to go to SurveyMonkey. These are the mood boards. I did this mixture of mood boards, different music magazines. And then these are the 3 presentations I did for contents, double page spread, front cover, and the magazines I liked. These are some of the conventions I used. I used catchy original mastheads, barcode, freebies, pull quotes, typeface, typography, slogo, cover lines and credit lines. I wanted my music magazine to be mainstream and found in any shop, bookstore or supermarket. I want many people to be able to get hold of it, and also my target audience are of a young age. When I did a recent survey on my final product, 5 out of 11 people said they would find my magazine in a newsagent's, but yet others said WH Smith, Waterstones and Tesco's. I was pleased to find these results because it meant I had reached my goal of having my magazine so it could be easy to get hold of. When designing and creating my magazine, I decided I wasn't going to put everything onto the left side because that wasn't how I wanted my magazine. I did make sure that a picture of the main artist could be seen clearly if it was to be stuck on a shelf. Bauer, Future and IPC would all be distributors when trying to get my magazine to the stores. My magazine could also be bought online through sites such as Issue. In order to attract the right audience, after I researched certain magazines I liked, I then knew the type of images and general styles I needed to follow. I like magazines such as Kerrang because they include bands that I am most interested in. So therefore, when I see a band I like on the front cover with interesting imagery and cover lines, I buy it. This research and interest gave me the ideas for the typical punk rock photo shoot that I needed to carry out in order to reach my target audience. There's examples here of what I wouldn't want on my magazine, the pop artists, and what I would. This research, on the feedback of my magazine, 11 out of 11 people chose pictures as to what they liked about my magazine. I was pleased with that because the images were what would attract an audience quickly, and with this feedback I know the photos were a hit. I also attracted my audience by creating interesting and catchy cover lines using darker colours rather than bright bold colours that would be seen on magazines such as Mixmag. In order to find out whether random groups such as my friends have realised who I'm trying to reach out to, punk rockers, I sent out my link to my surveys on Facebook. The audience for my music magazine is for both male and females aged between 15 to 19 and would interest certain teenagers who like fast, hard-edged music, who are looking to read news, etc., on bands that are quite different and who wouldn't necessarily be played on mainstream radio stations and placed on regular chart lists. This represents a particular social group in which many would know as punk rockers, or just punks. The images I used on my magazine were chosen to link with that social group. I looked at various images and photo shoots that could get this look I was wanting to make sure my target audience is reached. These are evidence of a few of my feedback questions. What do you think about my magazine? Most said excellent. The price, most said it's okay. It was quite high.
What was the price?
$2.99.
$2.99, okay.
Yeah. And most people said that they would change text and article. Either it was because maybe I didn't give them an option to put nothing, but or that might have been what they thought. Overall, I have learned various technologies. A big one would be learning to use Photoshop, and I feel I have made a huge step for my first preliminary task of making the front and back of a CD cover, purely because making a music magazine would either look like a real magazine or not, compared to a CD cover, which could be any way you wanted it, as it's your own artwork, and it is sold on the music, not just the cover. A magazine is brought on what is seen on the front cover and what pulls in the audience. If it doesn't look like a proper magazine, no one is going to buy it, and that was the main thing I took into consideration when designing and creating my product. I have learnt to use brushes, smudge tools, swatches, shadows, strokes, how to free transform and lasso images. All these things I used on my magazine as a whole and that I was confident using on other preliminary tasks. I am pleased with my finished product, but if I had to choose things to change, I would focus more on my mastheads on all pages. I would change the cost as audience members were not fully satisfied with the price they would have to pay if they wanted my magazine. And also, due to my feedback, I found that many people said they would change the text and article, but that might have been because either I didn't give them the option of saying they would change nothing, or I wasn't specific enough about what I meant, or it was because my article is heavily filled with text.
Thanks very much, Chloe. How did you feel about publishing your work to Blogger as opposed to an ordinary traditional art book with Pritt stick, scissors, paper? How did you feel about that process?
It's a lot better. It's not so much to do, whereas if you're sticking and that, whereas Blogger is just easy to upload. Although I did have some problems along the way on other things that you wouldn't upload and had to do it again, but in general I was happy with it.
You mentioned that your magazine would be in such sort of superstores like Tesco's, but yet it's quite a specialist magazine. I mean, it's punk rockers. The demographic is quite small. It's 15 to 19-year-olds, particularly punks. Or is it not? Or is it?
I wanted it to be for 15 to 90-year-olds, but I wanted it to be like in any stores. So if someone wanted to buy it, they wouldn't have to hunt down for it. So they could just go to a supermarket, say like if you're going with family and you come across it. And
do you think it would have enough of a wider readership though to attract stores like Tesco's to stock it?
Yes, because it's quite catchy. There's quite a lot of people who like magazines like that nowadays, and I think many people would buy it. So.
Okay, thank you. Question?
Who would you say your main competitor was with your magazine?
Kerrang or Rock Sound, and on my feedback, a lot of people said Rock Sound.
Okay, thank you. Question? Okay, thanks very much. Cheers. Thanks.